Are you ready to get the hydrofacial glow? Loved in 87 countries across the world. It's not a facial, it's a hydrofacial. Now available across the UK. Visit hydrofacial.co.uk to find your nearest location.
I think that was like one of the best periods for black music.
Yes.
Worldwide. A lot of classics came out of the 70s because there was that real feel-good factor about music in the 70s.
Hello,
girls. How is
Hi,
everyone?
darling. Yeah, good. I've had an extraordinary time, and it may sound a bit weird because I've got one of my family is very ill, and in recovery from cancer, and I've been learning a lot about music and how it really helps. I mean, I can't say it's a cure, although they're saying that it's really great to relieve anxiety, to give you that sort of good feel. And sometimes even there's been evidence of cancer cells disappearing a little bit, along with, normal sort of medicines and treatments. But I think music is a big one. And I just wanted to say that because, it's so important. And I always listen to my favorite tracks when I'm feeling a bit down, and especially coming out of lockdown, everyone's so anxious. I thought it could really help to remind us that, how important music is for all of us.
I think it's so funny you said that. I look at alternative, therapies, and I'm a true believer in holistic approaches as well as conventional medicine. But the reason why I got two cats is because their vibrations, their purring, it's healing. That's how they heal themselves. And me having brittle bones, there is actually like a plate, that vibrating plate that people with my condition can go and get the therapy, and they can sit on the plate, and the vibrations are supposed to kind of heal and increase bone density. And I definitely feel it when I have my cats. They come and sit on my chest, and that's that purring. And I think music is very similar because you have I've got a lot of deaf friends, and although they are not able to hear the lyrics, they can feel the vibrations, and that's how they feel the music. So I'm a true believer in that. It's really
absolutely. I think even from childhood we have lullabies to soothe us, to get us to go to sleep. It's innate in all of us to have that sense of singing and feeling good. And I know before every show that we do, everyone sings a song to unite them together. I suppose that's why we have things like the national anthem and things, but it is something that unites people, calms people, identifies with people.
My real go-to is You To Me Are Everything by The Real Thing, because that, even just the first note, it just wells me up. I mean, I just feel so happy and so joyous. Coincidentally, today we have Chris Amoo from The Real Thing, the best band ever in the history of bands for me. And let's listen to the music. Oh, you to me are everything, the sweetest song that I could sing. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Hang on, never let go. I'll love you forever, I know. Hang on, never let go. Here's Chris Amoo. Yay! You To Me Are Everything, I was just saying, has always been my go-to song.
Wow.
From the first note.
Yeah.
And I watch your videos over and over again. All of them. Through the stages, all of them. Yeah. And I'm sure when you're out there, and I know you've got new songs and you're going to tell us all about that, but I'll bet the audience want that song, don't they?
Well, it's special.
Oh, it is.
It's a special song. It's really weird, because when we actually recorded the song, you didn't think of it as being, you knew it was a nice song. You didn't never really think about it still being so popular 45, 50 years on. You just,
oh my God, I know.
And the thing is, I think it's still got the same vibe now when it comes on as it did then. It's
it
weird.
hasn't lost anything, hasn't it? Hasn't lost anything in time.
No.
So you know what? When you have a truth, and you, whether it's Greek tragedy, Shakespeare, or your song, the identification, human nature, that is what we need to have a catharsis, to understand. It speaks to us and will go through time because it has that connection to our core.
Always.
Yeah. It's we're just really very, very fortunate that that song came into our lives. We didn't realize it then, but you certainly, as the years go on, you begin to realize just how fortunate that you are. Because a lot of people have hit records.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
But after that, the generation of that record has gone. So is the song in a way. But with You to Me, it hasn't happened. And Can't Get By as well. It hasn't really happened that way. You know, they've just, each generation it's had the same effect on each generation.
Ken Gold wrote it though. I wonder if he thought, this is gonna be, this will smash it. Do you think?
Do you know what? I don't think it did. I don't. You know, being a songwriter, you don't really think like that. Oh, you know when you've got something good, but a lot of things that are good don't become hit records.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. That is true.
You know,
but Chris, I have to tell you that we were just talking about music being a great healer and making people feel good, which you know, and it is the test of time. And Sherry was saying that this is the song that always is her go-to song. And I think it is for many, many people, because I think it's so uplifting. You know, it's full of magic.
Yeah, it is. And it's I tell you when it becomes very difficult, when you're writing new songs, because people always say that to us throughout the years. People always say, oh, it makes you feel real good. And sometimes, you know, you like to do a ballad that doesn't necessarily make you feel good. Sometimes you like to do a ballad that makes you feel a little bit sad, you know, like a song like.
But that's good too. That's good too.
Yeah, but it's very off-putting because you're thinking to yourself, well, you really wouldn't believe the amount of people that say you're doing something quite serious, and you know, a nice serious song. Oh, but you know, I like you to me. I like you to me.
Yeah.
And you become known to make people feel good. So when you do a sort of a love ballad that doesn't necessarily make you feel good, you're back to another place. It can be a bit off-putting, you know. But
can I just say that I've watched your documentary several times, directed by Simon Sheridan, who was wonderful. It's such an inspirational documentary. You were so inspirational, you guys. And when you watch the documentary, it just fills your heart. One, with what you had to go through to get where you got, which is people don't understand what the 70s were and how tough it was, particularly Liverpool 8. And Children of the Ghetto came out of that. And but it was, for me, watching the documentary, it was a magical time. But of course, for you living it, it can't have been that magical. It must have been a struggle.
It was a struggle, but then life is a struggle. I mean, to be quite honest, it's still a struggle now for people living in the inner cities now, black and white. It's still a struggle. But it was magical. You hit the right words there, because number one, I think that was like one of the best periods for black music.
Yes.
Worldwide. A lot of classics came out of the 70s because there was that real feel-good factor about music in the 70s, you know? But trying to actually succeed in the 70s, being a black band was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was more difficult for us because we weren't American. That's number one. It was a lot more acceptable if you were into our genre of music, if you were black American.
Yes.
So when we came out, with our manager, Tony Hall, who was unbelievable, and we wouldn't be sitting here now if it hadn't been for that one person in our life. He always told us, be yourselves, don't copy, be yourselves. We were just 4 young guys from Liverpool 8.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he's seen in us.
You mean that you were trying to do, you know, all the American bands did all those dance moves all the time, didn't they?
Yeah,
Constantly.
Yeah. And funny thing is, we used to do that. We used to do all the dance things.
Yeah.
And, you know, but as far as a creative thing goes, we always try to write our own way. We were inspired by all that. That was what we used to listen to. But when we were actually writing our songs, we always tried to not copy it. We always tried to do our own.
And you did.
Our own thing. You know? And that was down to our manager, Tony Hall.
Right.
That was down to him. That one person who believed in us enough to say, I'm going to stick with you guys because I believe in you and I'm going to help you to develop yourselves, you know?
Wow, he did.
And basically, so he made it a little bit easier for us because with some of the songs like Children of the Ghetto and some of the songs on the new album, what I'm actually writing about is that no matter who you are or where you come from, you can do it if you don't allow yourself, if you don't allow your head to fall.
Yeah.
Keep your head up, believe in yourself. But the most important thing is that when you reach a certain point in life, you've got to have someone who believes in you.
You have, yeah.
And when you've got that person who believes in you, then you're on the way. And
it inspired you.
We're very, very lucky. Honestly, I can't.
But also, Chris, I always believe as well, and I always tell my daughter and grandchildren this: get off your own arse and get on with it. Don't sit around waiting for somebody to go, here you are.
Yeah,
get off your arse. Go
totally
out
agree.
Fight for it. And you all did. Yeah. And you won the TV show, the first black band.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been amazing.
Amazing it was.
Was it Huey Green? Was it Huey Green?
It was Huey Green.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yes. Well, there's a story.
In them days, there was only 3 channels.
Yes,
so
of course.
When something like Opportunity Knocks, everybody tuned in.
Yeah. Millions.
There's a funny story, you know, about Opportunity Knocks because we went and did the audition and we passed the audition, which we were like over the moon. But we were in between changing managers at the time. The 2 guys who were our managers who brought us to that point, they realized that they couldn't really take us any further and that Tony Hall, who was interested, would be fantastic for us. So once again, these 2 guys, they could have gone, hang on a minute, these guys are going to sort of break it now and we're going to reap the benefit. No, they said, no, Tony Hall will be better for you. So we were changing managers. But Tony didn't like the name Vocal Perfection, which is what we were on.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Right. He said, because guys, he said, look, he said, you're only young, you're only raw, and you're not vocally perfect. And people will get you on that, you know. So he said, so we said, yeah, okay, so we're going to have a name change, definitely. And he was driving around Piccadilly and the big Coca-Cola sign came up and it's the real thing, you know, that going around. And that's where he got the name, Real Thing.
Wow.
So
brilliant.
We won. When we won Opportunity Knocks, the next week you go in and you go into Huey Green's office and he says, right, lads, what's happened to you? What record companies have picked you up because of my show? And me, like an idiot, said, well, we can't say anything, Huey. So his face changes. What do you mean you can't say anything? Because, well, the thing is, Huey, is there's a lot of companies that are interested and I can't tell you now which ones because it'll put the others off and there's no deal finalized yet, you know. He said, what's this about? You're coming on to my show. He says, and what's this about you changing your manager? I says, oh, yeah. And we've changed our name, Huey. He said, I'm telling you now, he says, you get rid of that manager who you've got and you get back to Lou Fine. Lou Fine, his name was our old manager. And he had our manager, Tony Hall, he had him thrown out the building. Physically, he had him thrown out the building, right, by the security, right? And he said, if you don't go back and keep your name, he says, you'll never come on this show again, right? Wow. Oh, like we were like sort of, and he was effing and blinding, by the way. It wasn't like it was nice.
I can imagine.
Thinking, hang on a minute, our manager's just been kicked out of the studio, right? Anyway, comes time to go on to do our thing the second week. And Hughie Green's at the top of the stairs and we're at the bottom. And then he comes on downstairs onto the stage and he's still effing and blinding us. So upstairs, we're standing at the bottom. You make sure you effing get back to that. And you're not real thing. He says you're vocal perfection. He says you're vocal perfection. Oh, and then it says, and here's your host, Hughie Green. And his face went from effing and blinding to this big face.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Years ago. And we had to go on and perform after that, what he'd just been saying to us. And needless to say, we were beaten that week by a yodeler. Never did the show again. But,
there you go.
Yeah, but that was
wow. What a fabulous story.
About a fork in your road, because I have to say the words wolfhound, and I have to say the words dogs, because we're all dog mad here, obviously. But
Afghan.
Yes, all right. She has to come in, obviously. But you, can I say Crufts?
Yes.
Winning.
We won Best in Show in Crufts, yeah, in 1987.
And I had a wolfie called Gus, who I loved, and when he was teething, chewed through a sofa bed. So please talk to me about your wolfhounds and your Afghans, because who would have thought that left field, fork in your road? Please, go.
Well, once again,
how did that start?
Well, it's all connected to music, because one of my favorite artists, while we were sort of still dreaming, as it were, was a guitar player called Johnny Guitar Watson. And he was a huge sort of black artist, having hit records. And it was on one of his album covers, he had this fantastic Afghan hound and this amazing hat on. And I always said to myself, when we make it, that's the first thing I'm going to do.
Oh, wow.
One of these dogs, I'm going to have one of those hats and an open air, and an open top car.
Did you always have them as a kid? How did that begin?
Well, I went to boarding school because my parents broke up. So
right.
I went to boarding school while the divorce was coming through, and I loved it so much there that I stayed there. But they had a working farm.
Right.
And so the pupils used to work the farm. And so I got a love for animals. And they used to exhibit the livestock at the agricultural shows. So I actually exhibited a cow at the big Liverpool agricultural show when I was 14.
Oh my goodness.
And I've still got a picture somewhere of me in a long white overall.
No.
With a cow. And basically we had to bring that heifer up through the air. We had to train it, feed it, clean it out, brush it. And that's where I got my love for competition.
What was its name, Chris?
Love that.
Oh, I couldn't remember it. I don't think.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So that was your first experience. But
that was my first experience.
But how did the dogs come in, Chris? How did that start? How did that, when you made it, you got your Afghan?
Yeah. Well, how that come about was we were recording the Feel the Force album. And Ken Gold, who wrote You to Me, was producing that album. And I went to stay with him while we were recording the album. And he had an Afghan hound.
Oh, wow.
So when I went to stay with him, this lovely Afghan, it was just lying at your feet, and, with the lovely and it took my mind back to what I originally said I wanted to do. I wanted to have an Afghan hound. And although I didn't get it when we had the hit with You to Me, by the time we'd come to Force and I could afford one, we phoned round while I was staying in his. Yeah. And there was a kennels that had an Afghan hound.
There you go.
So the next day, before we went to the studio, we went and picked up this young Afghan hound puppy.
Oh.
He stayed in the control box while we were recording Field Force. And I took him home at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's amazing.
That's where I actually got my love for Afghan hounds.
Afghans.
And it went from there to going to a show, a dog show, because I wanted to see more.
Yeah.
And basically, and that's where my love for actually exhibiting them came about. But
did you breed them as well?
The one I won Crufts with, we bred,
So that
Did you?
Pardon?
Is it a wolfhound you won? Oh, an Afghan you won?
It was an Afghan hound I won Crufts with. The wolfhounds came a little bit later than the Afghans. The actual Irish wolfhounds came when I'd started showing dogs. So you see wolfhounds at the shows. And I always swore that I'd have one of them as well. And
me too.
And once again, I've never been without them since. Never been without wolfhounds.
Oh wow.
I need to Google, because I don't think I've seen what a puppy looks like. I obviously have a clear image in my head what the grown adult would be like. So I need to go. As soon as we finish, I'm going to go Google puppies, get some ideas in my head. I've already got 2 cats. I'm not even allowed to have them in my flat. But anyway, we'll discuss about that. I'll end up having 5 dogs by the end of the year. You are undoubtedly a game changer, a trailblazer in your own right. Maybe you weren't kind of aware of that at the time, but you most definitely are. And for me, I'm a minority working in the industry. Kind of, I've had oppression, I've had marginalization, I've been told that I couldn't achieve or shouldn't achieve. And I guess, I keep getting the same old question from people saying, have things changed? Have things changed? And I think what they want from me is me to go, of course, everything's hunky-dory. Minority groups have the same, opportunities as everybody else, and there's no prejudice in the world anymore. But we all know that that's not true. What advice would you give to young creatives who still feel that oppression, who still feel that marginalized? What advice would you give to them? And also, what would you say to someone asking, have things actually changed? Or your honest opinion?
My honest opinion, I think it was a lot easier for us to actually dream. Because there was nobody that we could sort of look at that was putting any pressure on. So it was just a sort of a really enjoyable thing for us. It was a dream that we had. Now, at the time when we actually started that dream, it didn't really matter whether it came to being or not. But as we were going on, and because we actually was rehearsing and practicing with each other for 2 years before we could harmonize and things. By the time we got to that point, all we wanted to do was get on that stage and sing, right? We didn't think about records, TV, and just getting on stage behind microphones, which at the time we had brush handles. We used to make our own microphones, makeshift microphones with brush handles and things. So the pressure wasn't there. The pressure wasn't there then. So we actually enjoyed the journey.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't until we realized, okay, now it's getting serious now. Now we need to start getting out there. And we realized that, to be quite honest with you, I've never been outside Liverpool 8, socially outside Liverpool 8. I haven't been to any of the clubs or anything like that because basically we weren't allowed in the clubs, So with living in Toxteth, Toxteth has got its own everything. We had our own clubs, youth clubs, where the whole generations used to meet in these social clubs, shall we wear, with the community centre on the bottom, followed by the middle, where a lot of the older, my brother's age used to go, and then upstairs again, where a lot of the old Jamaicans and Africans and that used to go, and they'd meet each other smoking the pipes and things like that. So it was 3 generations in one thing. So we had everything. We didn't need restaurants and things. We didn't need to go out of that circle. But when we tried to go out of the circle, you weren't really welcome because, number one, you didn't feel safe going on your own to a club. So therefore, you go with a couple of friends. But therein lies the problem because you're then a target.
Yeah.
So therefore, the bouncers and things like that wouldn't even let you in. They wouldn't even let you into the places. So we couldn't get in, And it wasn't until we started actually performing in places outside of Toxteth, that it was okay for us then to go into the club. And that's when we realized, well, there's a whole world outside of Toxteth, you know. And in all truthfulness, as time went on, everything started to open up.
Yeah.
When my father first came over, there was no clubs. The clubs were in the basements of houses where they used to have a couple of crates of beer and they used to play their high life records and things like that. Then came the slightly younger generation on from them, their kids. Now their kids had a little bit more freedom because clubs and things were opening in Toxteth. So they had actual clubs that they could go. And then our generation came. And that's when we started saying, well, hang on, I want to go into town. Like, you know, I don't want to stay in, I want to go into town. And that's when you started coming up against it. You know, that's when you started realizing, actually, they don't really like me down here. They don't really want me to come in here, you know. And taking that to a musical level, I found that when our influences, as I say, were Black American soul records, but they weren't really what you were hearing a lot on television and radio, right? You weren't really hearing that. You were only hearing the obvious, like the odd Motown things. But because we were in Toxteth, there was a base nearby, and a lot of the Black Americans were coming in to Toxteth of a weekend, and they'd bring the music with them from the base.
Wow.
And it was music that you wouldn't hear on the radio. You wouldn't hear a lot of these bands on mainstream radio. So our ears were open to all that, you know? And that is what totally became our influence on how we could develop ourselves, you know? And like I say, nowadays, it's different because you don't need anybody. Nowadays, you don't need anybody. See, people say to us, oh, it's been a long time since you've done something new. Well, that's because during that time from, I would say, let's say 1990, because we were doing new records, but just not new albums. We were at the mercy of record companies.
Yeah,
exactly. If a record company did not want to sign you up or did not want to do an album with you, you had no other means of doing the album. And that was it. Basically, all you had was your live work. But now, because of all the platforms, like yourself now, we're talking now, for us to get you talking to you like this now would have had to have been television.
Yes.
You know, but now the platforms are there. So we were able to, during lockdown, make our own album.
And thank you so much for coming in, darling. It's been so wonderful to talk to you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
darling.
you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
That was extraordinary.
What an inspirational character. And coming from those times, none of us know what that struggle was. And you must watch that documentary, everybody. It's called Everything.
He was absolutely inspirational, extraordinary, funny, compassionate. I mean, everything. I mean, just an amazing guest.
And a dog breeder to boot.
And he made a really valid point, didn't he? He said, you know, about gratitude, just be in the moment, appreciate each moment, don't think too far ahead. I think we can all take away from that, can't we?
Particularly at this terrible time of our lives at the moment.
I know. Even just right here, right now, being with you all, so great.
That's the only thing we can hold on to. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
So I shall see you Friday, girls.
Not if I see you first.
Absolutely. Auntie Tana.
Bye.